come pick me up or something. You might just actually be in my inner circle. So, if there's that be one to have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
how it is for me.
Yeah, it's just that closeness just happens, and when it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, well, that's just life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But how do you decide who you want to spend your time and energy with? Like you meet someone maybe on the job, and they seem nice and you want to get to know them more. How do you decide that? What is it that you're looking at in that person?
I'm looking at their overall character, especially if there's someone at work who may then lead into becoming more of a personal friend. You're with that person, in the office 8 hours or more a day. You get to know a lot about a person by whether they have integrity, whether they're
He talks
trustworthy,
about that in his book.
whether they're honest, and those are and you start to recognize traits that you like or admire or you share. Hopefully, you share. And that's how I initially determine. Or sometimes it's something as simple as, she's hilarious. She seems like she has so much fun. I would really like to. But it's always something kind of a positive sort of a thing that will attract me to finding a new or developing a new friend.
I don't really my brain doesn't really function when I'm looking, I see a person, I go, ooh, what do I like about him or her? It's more like, how does that person make me feel?
Mm-hmm.
Do I feel happy around that person?
Yes.
If I feel uncomfortable around that person, is it because they're reflecting an insecurity I have? And if so, is that something that I want to transform, and should I actually keep on having a relationship with this person? Because some people who you just don't like, they actually reflect something that you need to see for yourself and resolve. And sometimes, if I'm aware of that, I can choose. Sometimes I actually do want to go with that discomfort, but sometimes when I'm not ready for it, or really I just get this bad vibe, I just don't go toward that person.
How do you evaluate if you're a good friend?
Ooh.
Good one.
How do I evaluate?
Yes.
I don't really.
So in his book, he gives you questions at the end of each chapter that you can ask yourself and that you can ask others, and it's really so that you evaluate yourself as a friend as well. What are you bringing to the table? Is there a mutual benefit? Are you the giver or the taker? Are you taking too much? So what is it? Do you really think about how am I treating this person?
I actually do. I do, and because there's certain things I consistently pray for, and it's generally that that I'm a better person, I'm the best mom I can be, the best wife, the best friend, the best sister, just the best me I can be in all of these areas, and I look at that in terms of, am I there when all my friends are girls, so am I there for her when she needs me? Am I sensitive? Am I conscientious? I've worked on remembering people's birthdays. Facebook helps a lot with that.
Yes.
But that's not really my nature to do that. I feel like I have a big heart for all my friends and family, and I love people dearly, but I don't always do the simple things that show it. And so it's just something I feel like I have a friend who's so thoughtful. And it's like you'll say something like, oh, I love mango. And then, one day she'll pop over with 5 mangoes. And it's like, you might have said it months ago, but it's so
she
cool.
remembers and she
and it's like,
you.
and I just felt like I want to emulate Linda more, and my friendship, so that I can be showing that I love this person in these really simple ways. So I do think about it, because to have friends, you have to be a friend, and I think it's important, and I want to be there for the people who I love and who love me.
I do catch myself at times just randomly thinking about where I might be in certain relationships. And it's not anything I've actively set out to do, it just starts to happen. And I think through that, sometimes I started to realize, well, maybe I could do this better, or maybe I could do that better, or maybe I need to just pull back just a little bit, so it's just during those moments where it just randomly pops up, because I do admittedly think a lot. So in that thinking comes, how am I doing as a person?
Well, I know I've been thinking about my friendships a lot, and I do want to be more thoughtful, like sending out those cards and doing things like that. I will write a card I will stamp a card, and it will be on my desk for like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and the moment has passed.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you can't send it after that. But I do.
Actually, you still can.
You still
You
can.
think so?
I've
You
done
can
that.
still
where
can.
it's-
I have totally done that before.
Yeah, or it's like, really that? But I just
It's
do.
it's dated a year ago.
I know.
Hello. But here's the thing: it is the thought that counts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think, and whether or not you get it 2 days later or whether you get it 5 years later, I think the
It's-
thought behind
Yeah.
it, you're still thinking about it, which means
Yeah.
you're still thinking about that
And
person.
that person's gonna feel so good when they get it.
Exactly.
Really?
You know?
I would think they'd just be like, oh my goodness, this was
But I'm
fun.
gonna thank you for my
No.
thank you card.
You're very So let's flip the script a little bit, because one of the things that Van does talk about is he's talking about relationships in general. So he's not just talking about the relationship between you and your best friend. He is also talking about the relationships between, say, you and your career. Okay, so how do you evaluate whether your career relationship is working for you?
I'm in the middle of that right now.
Usually there's that gnawing voice in the back of your head that says you need to make a change.
Right.
And it depends sometimes on whether or not you want to listen to it, or if you're in the right circumstance to actually take an action. I'm not sure if that actually answers the question.
Well, I think it's a tough question, because when we think about relationships, we really don't think about them as your career and or your company that you're working with. That's a relationship.
Mhm.
And so when I was reading that part in Van's book, that really stood out to me, because not only did he talk about career relationships, but he also talked about your organizational relationships.
Mhm.
So if you're part of any nonprofits, or you work outside of the career spectrum, that's also a relationship.
Because entities have personalities.
Correct.
Just like companies have brands. Is this a brand that I support and that I feel good about? So I think that goes into that whole criteria of evaluating whether a certain specific position is for you or not. Because I feel like I'm kind of in a constant evaluation of all things, sometimes more than others. But when it comes to my job, it's like, okay, is it paying me what I feel like I need to be paid?
Right.
Is it giving me a work-life balance that I feel that I also need to have a nice life? Is it challenging me in ways and stretching me enough? Do I feel like a good dynamic with my boss? So all of that stuff comes into the personality of the organization and whether it's a fit for me, because like we talked about before, I change, I evolve, and maybe what worked for me before doesn't work now.
Yeah.
And then just so we can wrap it up, my last question for you guys is, have you ever stayed in a relationship because of guilt?
No.
No?
No.
I have. Yeah, the relationship I was talking about earlier, where it's a friend from high school, but I've stayed in it because I feel guilty, like he hasn't done anything wrong. To me, it's just the conversation is not there. What we're talking about now, we wouldn't be talking about with him.
I don't know if I stayed in a relationship because of guilt. I have stayed in a relationship because of comfort. And sometimes
That's a good one.
I'm not sure if those are aligned or not, because I did feel guilty for ending that relationship, because maybe like yours, he was very good to me. But I think with every relationship there comes a time where if it needs to temporarily stop or move on to the next level, it will.
I think it's all about communication too, right? At the end of the day, as you communicate with each other, you'll determine whether or not it's worth continuing or
Right.
not, and making sure that both of you understand where you are. That makes a huge difference. And so I can't say, again, I said no, but I can't say that I've stayed in a relationship of any form or kind because of guilt. That's a huge burden to carry.
Right, it is.
Yeah,
I'm anti-guilt in general. Seriously, I am. I don't feel like it serves any real purpose. I think we have our conscience that helps us to decide between what's wrong and what's right, and we don't want to be hurtful or harmful to others. But we all make mistakes. I think carrying guilt it limits you.
I agree.
You gotta free yourself of that.
You're
You're always thinking about something.
Well, that ends our discussion on relationships for today's episode. Thank you, ladies, for participating and just sharing and being kind of forthright with my audience. We hope that you enjoyed and got something out of this. Visit us on thedivaincom and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Sorry, I lost my balance.
It didn't take us all doing.